Hello,
Hello.
Jim.
Hi, Mary.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, just top of the world. How about you?
Yep, doing about the same. We are recording. We are on our first recording on this very important series on glycoscience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited. This is such a big deal. You know, the more I'm reading, it's like, oh my God, there's such important information. And I know you agree with me. We've spoken about it. We really want to get this information out to people.
You know, it really is, and we have experienced a lot of things on the nutritional side, but now there seems to be a huge move in the direction of making this mainstream medical, which is really exciting. I think that the nutritional side has shown very tremendous amount of promise since I've been with it since 1994, and there are scientists that have been exploring this since the 1980s and in Carrington Labs. So it's extremely exciting to see the potential that we have of really moving mainstream medicine forward and hopefully seeing the end of a lot of these chronic illnesses and diseases that have been plaguing our society for years and years and years.
Exactly, Jim. I mean, just to recap, the rates of chronic illnesses in our country are astronomical. People don't realize, but so much unnecessary pain and suffering. And there's a book I want to share with you, which I know you're aware of. You told me about it. Transforming Glycoscience, a roadmap for the future. Discuss how important this topic is. These high-level government agencies commissioned the National Research Council to convene a committee to assess the importance and impact of glycoscience so that challenges could be identified and the field can move forward. Now, the high-level government agencies include the NIH, the FDA, the U.S. Department of Energy, and the National Science Foundation.
That's an amazing quadruple agency deal, isn't it?
Well, it is. It is. And I'm so grateful to have been involved with the glyconutritional research, you know, under you and under Dr. Reg. It was a life-transforming experience, Jim. It really was. To see how children could benefit. And, you know, in the case of our children with bipolar, we didn't touch the medication. Our role was not to touch the medication anyway, but they needed their medication. But they were so happy and healthy, and they didn't have bags under their eyes, and, you know, didn't get evicted from school, running, jumping, and participating in life, engaging in life. And that's what really, isn't that why we're here? You know, for healing and restoration. So, you know, this topic is very close to my heart. And I want you to introduce yourself. I mean, you played a pivotal role as the director of the studies.
Well, before we get into the introduction, I've got to think about that for a minute. Share with us one of the I think most transformational things in the research was the effect that you saw of the side effects of medications. That the kids didn't change the medications, but the side effects changed. And the intended use of the medications actually had better results. Is that a good assessment?
That's very true. So, Jim, in our study, and we started with 20 kids, and I think we finished the study with 18. Okay, and we rated the side effects, and they were initially 45.9%. I mean, out of 100. That was the rating. And in 6 months, went down to 3.6.
Wow.
I knew, I didn't know what to expect. I thought we would have some good results, but I had no idea. I mean, this was off the rail, shocking. And when I think about it, the brightness in the kids' eyes, their ability to sit quietly, interacting with their families, or even when we were doing the assessments, when we started our study, and for anyone who is not aware, we studied the impact of these glyconutritionals on children with bipolar condition, bipolar disorder, from the ages of 5 to 18. So initially, the kids would come to the door for the study. I mean, we had one kid kicking the examiner. They could not sit. There was a banister, like a railing, to go to the second floor. A couple of them were hanging off the railings, literally hanging off the railings.
Wow.
And to be real honest with you, it was pretty crazy. So, and the families were saying, they said, we could be sitting peacefully in the living room, and then all of a sudden, their child would impulsively take a lamp and fling it across the hall.
That's amazing.
Not concerned for who they could hurt, what damage, and yeah, it was just incredible. And we can talk a lot more in depth about the results, but when you see something like this, and you see what you would say nearly hopeless conditions, it was like, this is really bad. And to turn around to be so good with the addition of the glyconutritionals. So what that meant for us, and these were donated supplements. So and it was not inexpensive. If you bought those supplements commercially, I don't know, I would guess it'd be close to $400 a month.
It does come fairly close to that, but I believe that, in terms of expense, my goodness, any expense that has results in the behavior realm is a major push in the right direction. And
I couldn't agree with you more.
I believe a part of what you saw and a part of what you experienced, I mean, I just commend you for sticking through the study in spite of all of the shenanigans that you had to experience at the outset with the baseline, because the baseline shows, just major behavioral issues, and our society is dealing with major behavioral issues.
Yes.
And you got a sample of just an uncontrollable group of kids that very, very quickly turned into not controllable, but kids that were alive again and were willing to participate in life and not just hopeless. And I believe that, no matter what the expense or the lack of expense, the results that you have as a result of the transformation in these kids was just astounding.
Well, and you are right. It's and you would think of the monies that are spent, but like on children, but it's all on the back end. There's very little proactive. We have, I hate to say it, but there's either chronic mental illness institutions or there's prison.
Right. And a lot of these kids end up in prison.
Exactly. And you know what? And they don't want it. I mean, when we're listening to these kids, they want to be successful. They don't want to be thrown out of school. I mean, literally, the way they're wired, they just cannot function. So to see them engaging in school, church, all of this is beyond amazing. It really gave me hope. It's like, wow, because working with kids for so many years, I mean, we hear all kinds of stories, all kinds of pain and suffering for the families, and most all for the children. So in my fervent hope is that, we get this information out, and really, we need larger studies. We had a small pilot trial, but we need larger studies. And I think when the time comes, we will get them. We will raise the money and we will get these larger studies, because it is so essential. If we start when the kids are young, they've got their whole lives ahead of them.
Exactly. And my question to you is, because you saw the beginning from the end, would you say that, being that we just added nutrients into these kids' diets in the form of dietary supplements, which actually multiplies the nutrition in high-quality supplement, it multiplies the nutrient value of fruits and vegetables and the things that the kids don't get in the diet. Would you say that there is a nutritional deficiency that's possible in these kids that have behavioral issues, and that you saw the results of adding nutrients to the diet without changing the drugs, and possibly that the drugs actually worked better because of the fact that you added these high-quality nutrients in the diet?
Well, and I will say something, Jim. With rare exception, our children today do not get an optimally nutritious diet. They just don't. The food is so processed. Think about what the kids eat. All the food in the wrappers, the brightly colored packages. I mean, we're at a critical point. There's a minority of parents that really do understand and appreciate this. And they really do. I mean, I'm on Zoom calls with them. They're talking about the absence of nutrition in the soil, okay? And much of the soil is so overrun by pesticides that this is becoming a national crisis. Now, relatively speaking, they're in the minority, but it's becoming a larger enough minority that are like, do not contaminate our food. Our kids need healthy food. But if you notice, what's served, and I'm not criticizing the schools, because, it's a little bit more expensive to eat healthy. And it's not easy. And so much of the food is, quite honest, it's just junk.
Yeah.
So it's not helping. All children need nutrition. All children need quality nutrition. I'll be honest with you, because I sit and listen to kids. Most of them hate fruits and vegetables. They just hate them.
Yeah.
And that's
because they're not full of sugar.
Exactly. And they're not they're the fruit is, healthier sugar, but the vegetables, forget it. And that's what really all of our kids need. So in this case, we gave them supplements. Now, I will tell you, with a percentage of kids, it was very hard for them to swallow capsules. So what the parents that were very, very familiar with this, they just opened the capsule and sprinkled them right in the food.
Right.
And it was not a problem at all.
Right.
Not a problem at all. And then the others, you just sprinkled it, like the powder, right in whatever it was, yogurt or oatmeal or whatever. And to make sure that the kids, because initially during the study, the biggest problem was the compliance.
Sure.
There was just a percentage of kids are like, I'm not eating that. But
so if you put it in the food that they eat, it doesn't really matter. Yes.
It doesn't. It does not matter. And the children got the nutrition that they needed. And I'm so grateful they're really troopers, to get their kids They would come every month for the study to, measure their, and we had evaluators, it was a whole, it was a little clinic. It was a little research clinic. And those parents were real troopers, getting their kids out on a Saturday and for the study. And that we would give them their bags of supplements like for the next month.
Right.
So
it was an amazing study that you did, and my goodness, I mean, you had so many volunteers working with you, and I just commend you for the work that you put forward in getting that done and in actually getting the results and showing the results. And I believe I'm with you. I think that if we got further research that was independent of where you and I are involved and there's an independent research that actually shows the same kind of results, I think that there's a crying need right now in our society for results-driven research that can show benefit for the kids and the adults who suffer from bipolar and from ADHD and from all kinds of other things.
Exactly.
So I really believe that we really need to go in that direction. You asked me about my background, and I was privileged to work with Manna Relief Ministries for 4 years as Dr. Reg McDaniel's assistant, administrative assistant, and also as his research coordinator. And that's how you and I met. I was introduced to you when I was a research coordinator with Manna Relief, and you were interested in doing the study. And it wasn't an easy study. I mean, you had 20 kids in each study, and you had protocols to write, and you had to assess the kids. You really did a lot of work in terms of documenting all of these things. So I just really commend you for that. We had a number of different studies that were done during that 4-year period, and many of them were written up in the journal called the Fisher Proceedings Journal, and many of them were frankly ignored by mainstream medicine. And I think that we have more of an acceptance now for the fact that nutrition does make a difference, that it's more widely accepted and embraced than it ever was before. Quite frankly, we have fraudulent stuff out there too that isn't high quality nutrients. They're just out to make a buck, and there certainly is a major difference between high quality nutrition and nutritional supplements and low quality junk that's just to make a buck. It's the same as our food supply. I mean, there's high quality food and there's low quality food, and quite frankly, we have a plethora of low quality food in our diet these days. And it does make a huge difference, I believe, in our chronic illnesses and in our chronic diseases. And there are those that really do want to investigate this and to move it forward. And I think that we have a huge story to tell in terms of how to resolve this problem that we've been experiencing for years and years and years, and it's just progressively getting worse.
Absolutely. And I will say, Jim, another thing is, because I mean, again, I hear about it, I hear people complaining about it, the profiteering of medicine. If, in other words, if something is not going to make a profit, there's no interest in doing the research. None.
Correct.
And I've had parents say, what if, now even if it's a medicine, what if, my child who has this condition and there's no interest in researching this condition because there's no money in it. And it gets, I've had enough parents say that to me. It's like, and I'm not talking necessarily about mental health. I'm talking about some like rare clinical conditions. So, and I think we're at a point where we have witnessed enough benefits with the glyconutrients. And I saw with the other studies that Dr. Reg and you produced, Fisher Proceedings, through the doctors, and how much work there was and what benefits. The time has come. We're at a tipping point. We cannot sit passively and wait for this information to get out there. I used to have dreams. I said, my God, if I don't speak up about this research this information could just perish from the face of the earth, and people would not know about it.
Correct. Absolutely, and that's why we're actually moving forward proactively with Global Health and Heart to get this information out there, to educate people, and to hopefully turn the tide of sickness and disease, our sickness care system, into a healthcare system once again. And that's my hope. In not only dealing with nutrition versus medicine, bottom line is we need to deal with people's illnesses and diseases and transform their health, not just talk about one aspect of health versus another. I believe that there's an integrative purpose for dietary supplements, and there's an integrative purpose for medicine. And I think that your study actually illustrated this incredibly well, that these kids did not get off their medications, and yet their side effects of the medications went down dramatically. And the results that they had, whether it be from the nutrition or whether it be from the medications all of a sudden working better, who cares? I mean, it really is a matter of getting people healthy and getting people well and operating on their full potential rather than operating as in a crippled dementia sort of way. It really, that's what it's all about.
Well, and Jim, I will say this. When we started the study, one of the first things I heard from the parents was, please do not touch these medications, which I was not planning to, but they were very emphatic. It has taken us a long time to get these medications stable for the children. And one false move, one, yanking here and there, and most of them were on more than one psychotropic medication. And again, that was not the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study was to add the supplements, add the glyconutritionals, and see what potential benefit there would be. But yeah, they were very clear about that. And it just shows you. Now, I will say this. We did an ADD study, and that was actually a larger study, and we had a population in like two separate regions. One was in Colorado Springs and one was in Denver, in a wonderful pediatrician's office. Now, the ADD kids, they were mixed. You had some that were very hyper, and those tended to need to stay on their medication. But a lot of the inattention, the attentional problems, the parents basically just reduced the doses and stopped it on their own. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And
that's
you know what?
Fascinating.
Again, I was not there to monitor their medication. That was, I was in touch with their prescribers. In fact, the prescribers were the ones who referred the kids. Most of the kids for our studies were referred by their psychiatric prescriber, either a psychiatrist or advanced nurse practitioner. So the ADD was really interesting. That was very different from but again, the severity was different. The severity,
right.
A lot of the kids that were with inattention, their focus improved, and they didn't need any medication.
That's wonderful.
So, does this more study? You bet it does.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and back then, Jim, I will tell you, I went to some of the universities. I talked to clinicians. I mean, the prospect that I was suggesting that they do a larger study, it's like, really? Bring the money, we'll run any study you want. But it's like millions of dollars. And
yes.
And then I realized then, and maybe I was very naive, I'm like, oh my God, aren't we about health and healing? Well, we are to a degree, but if there's no profit on the back end, there's really, I just have to be candid, there's really very little interest. So, which is why we need to get this information out, and because there's so many kids that are impacted by the lack of nutrition in our food.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see a difference in terms of when you were dealing with the behavioral health, I guess both in ADHD and in the bipolar study? Did you see a reduction in terms of the kids that got in trouble, and a increase in terms of school attendance, and maybe an increase in their grades, or did you measure any of that during the research?
Well, I know very clearly with the kids with the bipolar, because I got to know those kids, because they typically, almost all of those kids, by the fall would have been, either expelled, suspended, or be on probation to come back, or hospitalized, or one of the above. And there was a significant improvement in attendance. There was a significant improvement in how they performed, and what I was and after school activities too. Okay, church attendance, which most of the kids, they couldn't sit in church and join the family, or they would, it was just one behavior problem after another. After school activities, they were much more able to engage. So it was a much more hopeful, optimistic. And remember, I talk about those bipolar kids because those were our severe kids. Those kids were severe.
Right.
They had, I think, I'm not remembering the data, but a lot of those children had been hospitalized at least once.
Wow.
And some more than once.
Yeah.
So it was becoming like, are we looking at a hospitalization? Are we looking at, in fact, the hospitalizations is where the meds tended to get fine-tuned, titrated.
Really?
Yes, but there was nothing mild about what these kids were suffering or these families. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
wow.
It was an absolute privilege, and I really believe that there will be more. There will be more studies. Back then, at the university level, I don't think what I observed is that it was always in the back of their mind, gee, what are we going to get out of this? Like, if it's a pharmaceutical, they'll get a big grant. Where if it's a supplement, they're not going to get anything. And
right.
We would have to bring the money. We would have to bring the millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
which
that was
I believe
15
that we'll
years
do.
ago.
Yeah,
I do too.
I believe that
I
that's
really
our
do.
purpose.
I do
I believe that we're to get the millions of dollars to be able to get the research done, but not only to get the research done, we need to get the word out once the research is completed and published. That this is real. This isn't just a fly by night, result. And I believe that there's more than just the nutrients that we've experienced, but certainly the nutrients that we've experienced have shown marvelous results, marvelous improvements in people's health. And the word does need to get out there. So I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I know that it's going to cost a tremendous amount of money to get this research done that needs to get done. But the money is there, the resources are there, and I believe that the need is just a crying need at this point to move this forward.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, just to go back, originally our talk was an introduction to Glycoscience, and I just want to mention this because people might think, what is Glycoscience? To be real basic, it is the study of glycans, Glycans, and that is one of the fundamental classes of, I don't want to give too many big words because it confuse people, but it's important that we just wrap our heads around it. Macromolecules that comprise living systems. So in other words, it's a huge building block along with proteins, lipids, nucleic acids. So the thing is, this book, Transforming Glycoscience, is very, very bold. And they said relatively little attention has been played to this class of molecules. And Glycoscience remains a relatively understudied field. So,
I believe that's correct, and I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, again, without getting too technical, and my brain is a little bit more simple because I'm not a doctor.
You did great.
But anyway, the fact of the matter is that the cell is a very, very tiny organism in the body. The body is made of trillions of different cells. Heart cells, liver cells, kidney cells, and they all have different purposes. They all have different functions. They're not the same. But these little hair-like structures stick out of the cells. Each cell in the body has these little hair-like structures that stick out, and they send out something like akin to radio signals. And these signals, this cellular language, so to speak, is actually made up of sugars, of carbohydrates. Not like table sugar, glucose, galactose, that kind of thing. Not like sucrose or xylose, or we're not talking about those kind of sugars. We're talking about plant sugars, plant carbohydrates that are made up in the chemical structure of the plant and in the chemical structure of the foods that we eat. So many of the sugars that we have in our cell structure have been processed out of our food. So we no longer get fucose, xylose, N-acetylgalactosamine, N-acetylglucosamine, N-acetylmuriatic acid. We don't get the mannose or those kinds of things. We get some galactose and we get plenty of glucose. And the body has to go through a backup transformation of converting these sugars that we do eat into the sugars that we don't eat, in order that the body can have these sugars available for proper cell-to-cell communication. Well, that process is a enzymatic. It takes a lot of enzymes to convert one sugar to another sugar. Enzymes are meant for energy. And a lot of people, frankly, are just low on energy because they don't have the enzymes to convert these sugars into the other sugars that are necessary for cell-to-cell communication. Thus, you have missing nutrients that are necessary for the cells to communicate with each other, and then you have cell-to-cell miscommunication. So you have things like multiple sclerosis, where you have a miscommunication of the myelin sheath, and the myelin sheath goes haywire and causes pain in the muscles. You have things like myasthenia gravis, where the muscles in the body, and the arms, and in the legs, and in the neck, and the head, and the diaphragm, and so on, the muscles actually atrophy and cause a muscle weakness and ultimately death because people can't breathe anymore. You have these things that are a result of a lack of nutrients, the sugars that are necessary in the diet. And so when you add those sugars back into the diet, you actually have things like bipolar that responds. It's not that it's a cure for bipolar, it's a cure for multiple sclerosis. It's not a cure, it's just feeding the body the nutrients that are necessary for proper cell function. And there are several diseases over the centuries that have shown that nutrients actually are the cure for these deadly diseases. Scurvy was one of them. Scurvy is the reason that we speak English instead of Spanish or French or Portuguese. Scurvy was back in the sailors' day. Scurvy was the disease that would kill all the sailors on the ship. And it killed more people than the battles in the shipyards killed.
Wow.
So you had this guy by the name of James Lind, I believe, that discovered that lemons and limes and oranges and so on, that when he made this concoction of lemons and limes and oranges and fed it to the sailors, those sailors got well and they lived.
Wow.
And that was a nutrient deficiency disease. So what we have today, I believe, is a either in total or in part a nutrient deficient society that's actually suffering from nutrient deficiency. And I believe that we're beginning to discover the things that are necessary for the body to function normally. So when you have nutrients that are added back into the diet that we're missing from the diet, what you end up with is what some might call a miracle. But it's not a miracle. It's just adding the nutrients back in. It's like, giving somebody water that is dying of thirst.
Exactly.
Dehydrated. So if you have somebody that's dehydrated and you give them water, is water a cure for dehydration? Well, yes and no. Water is obviously what cures the problem of being thirsty. And the body is, a huge percentage of water. I forget what the percentage is, but it's like over 50% water. So obviously your body needs water to function. Well, if you give your body water when it's deficient on hydration, and you find that the body actually responds and gets well, does that mean that drugs aren't necessary or whatever? Well, in that case, yeah. Drugs really aren't necessary to give people hydration. Water is. Sometimes it has to be intravenous, and that's a wonderful technology that medicine has come up with in terms of in terms of giving hydration to people who are deficient in water. But basically, you know, is dehydration a deficiency of a nutrient? Yeah, it's deficiency of liquids in the body. And
right,
if you don't drink
exactly.
liquids, you don't have health. So the idea here is, you know, yes, you know, there does need to be medical research, and there does, you know, if a doctor prescribes medications, we believe that you need to go ahead and take your medications. But if your condition is as a result of, in part or in full, a lack of nutrients, then you need to find what those nutrients are.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the great resources that is out there, if you type your disease condition into the search section of pubmed.gov, that's PUBMED.gov, G-O-V, you'll find that there are tons of research articles. Most of the research is done overseas, of course, but there are tons of research articles that are published in peer-reviewed mainstream medical journals that actually give you the answers of nutrition and the health disease that you're interested in working with. And so I'd really encourage anybody to go to pubmed.org or pubmed.gov, I'm sorry, and to find what especially what nutrient you need to be able to deal with the condition that you have. Mm-hmm. And find out what drugs are available too. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. You know, by all means, follow your doctor's advice. We're not advocating against doctors. We're all for integrative health. Get with your doctors, get the medicine you need, but boy, if you need additional support, get some nutrients in you and find out what nutrients are deficient in your diet in order to make your body function optimally well.
Absolutely, Jim. Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's a huge take home, and the importance to empower people by talking about the PubMed is this information is available to the public.
Yes.
And you don't have to be advanced trained to read the summary of the article. There's a little summary, an abstract that really pretty much everyone can read. It's so you get a basic idea. Now I want to circle back because we started talking about glycoscience and want to talk about those glycans, those molecules. Now this book, and we'll reference it at the end because it's a phenomenal book, Transforming Glycoscience by the National Research Council. And they say glycans are everywhere. All living cells are coated on their cell membranes with glycans. All cells, so think about that. How prevalent, how pervasive they are in our bodies. And they play diverse and critical roles in the area of cell signaling, molecular recognition, immunity, and inflammation. Now, they say most chronic diseases are connected with inflammation in the body. So the question is, what role can glyconutrients play in reducing this inflammation? Same with immunity.
A huge role, because inflammation is simply, and once again, the body's immune system responding to a mixed message that isn't, it's like responding to a garbled message, and it says something is wrong. And so, you have this garbled message that says something
right.
wrong, and you have all of these different cells in the body, the macrophages and and you have all of these recipients of this message, and all they hear is something's wrong. And so what they do is they provide the body with inflammation, because that's an inflammatory response, is an immune system response. Well, the answer to that may be a temporary answer of providing anti-inflammatories, but is that really the answer to dealing with the inflammatory problem? Well, maybe on a short-term basis, but on a long-term basis, don't we want to take things that provide the body with proper cell-to-cell communication, so that when different cells receive the messages, they say something's wrong. We have inflammation in the eardrum, and it's causing deafness, and so we need to send the different cells in the body to deal with this problem in the eardrum, or ear infections or whatever. We need to deal with that end of things, and so one of the things too that I think needs to be said is that most medicines are based on proteins. They are not based on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are very complex. They have multiple streams, and so it's very difficult to understand how all these carbohydrates work, whereas proteins are very targeted. You can program proteins to do a lot more things than you can do with carbohydrates. So it is an area of study that needs to be explored, but it is not a simple thing. I believe that in the book Transforming Glycoscience, it talks about the Genome Project and how we studied the genes, and how genes turn on and how genes turn off, and so on and so forth. And they said, we won't understand how the genes work until we understand how these glycans work in the body, how this glycoscience really functions. It's only then that we'll fully understand how the genes work, because genes function on the basis of glycoscience. So there's a huge area of I believe new research that's coming up that hopefully isn't just being ignored and washed under the table, because I believe that these top scientists in the world that wrote this book, Transforming Glycoscience, have clearly laid out the fact that every high school, every college, every medical school, every hospital, every drug institute, everybody needs to understand and needs to pursue this whole area of glycomics in order to understand how to make medicine work optimally well. And I believe that when we get there, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface, I believe that when we get there, we will have a much more functional, optimally healthy society than we've ever had before.
I couldn't agree with you more. And to go back to the Genome Project, it spoke about, with Glycoscience, we're still at the basics, whereas the humans, that, like, for the Genome Project, picture where things were at before they even initiated that, at a very primitive level. And then, they did tremendous research. They learned a lot. But now, with Glycoscience, we're still in the infancy stages. So we need to ramp this up. And as you said, and we're going to have a series, so we'll be talking about multiple aspects where Glycoscience plays a key role and needs to be researched. And like you said, to fully appreciate the human genome, we need the Glycoscience.
Correct.
You cannot have one without the other.
on all levels, I believe that glycoscience needs to be explored. However, just to lay this out, we don't have to wait the years and years and years and years and years down the road to be able to explore this whole area of glycoscience. Simply eat the fruits and vegetables that contain these nutrients. Simply get the high-quality nutritional supplements that contain the highly concentrated aspect of these nutrients, and I believe that your health will be transformed before the scientists can ever catch up to say, here's what it's all about. We understand it now. I don't think this will be understood for years.
Right. So don't wait. Focus on optimal nutrition.
Yes.
Well, Jim, this is for our kickoff. This has been phenomenal. Any closing words?
Well, I'm so blessed to be a part of what we're doing, and I invite anybody who wants to be a part of what we're putting forward to write to us, and you can volunteer, get the word out through sharing it with your friends. If you want to support us financially, we're definitely in need of that, but that isn't the only way that you can support us. We really want to we really want this to be a blessing to many people, especially those who are experiencing compromised health, in order that there can be a transformation in your bodies, in your health care. And again, we're not looking to substitute for a doctor's care. We're encouraging people to stay with their medical doctors and their medicines and so on. We're just encouraging people to add these nutrients to the diet and experience the life-giving benefits that you can move forward with, and live optimally well.
That's awesome, Jim. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Mary.
Yeah, this has been wonderful, and we look forward to chatting again with our audience very soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.